Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a truly fascinating and, well, at times, pretty intense collection of sources. They paint such a vivid picture of our world right now. You've brought us everything from breaking news editorials to deep economic analyses.
Personal reflections, even sharp cultural critiques.
Yeah, it's a real rich tapestry of perspectives, isn't it? Offers a kind of shortcut to understanding some of the most pressing issues of our time.
Exactly. And our mission for this deep dive is really to extract those vital insights, those nuggets of knowledge that truly matter from all this diverse material.
Right.
We're going to be looking at how these intertwined forces like geopolitical instability, pressing urban challenges, and rapid technological shifts are not just creating a complex and uncertain global landscape, but also how different regions, different sectors are grappling with these very real, immediate forces.
And what we'll see, I think, is that this isn't just about distant headlines.
No, not at all.
From the immediate impacts of, say, political upheaval and environmental disasters, to the longer-term implications for our cities, international relations, even our daily lives. These sources really challenge us to connect the dots.
They do.
So what does this all mean for you and for the world we live in? Let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's dive in. We're going to start our journey in South Asia.
Right.
Because the sources we looked at, they really highlight a significant, well, frankly, an alarming wave of political upheaval there.
Very much so.
Take Nepal, for instance. We're seeing a pretty dramatic and rapid shift unfolding.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating there is not just the speed of it, but the actual nature of the crisis.
Okay.
I mean, our sources detail these really violent protests that led to Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli's resignation. That was September 9th, 2025.
And this wasn't just some political squabble, was it?
No, it was ignited by a social media ban, believe it or not, which then spiraled into a much deeper anti-corruption uprising. We're talking about more than 20 people dying.
Oh, terrible.
Government buildings like Parliament being stormed, set alight, and nearly 1,000 prisoners freed in the chaos. It paints a picture of, well, societal breakdown.
And the key players are surprisingly modern, aren't they? This wasn't a traditional political movement led by established parties.
Not at all.
Our sources emphasize it was largely driven by Gen Z activists.
That's right. Coordinated with impressive agility through platforms like Instagram and Discord, focusing on very real grievances like unemployment, rampant corruption, nepotism.
The core issues.
Exactly. It's a direct challenge to the old political guard.
Indeed. And this raises a big question, doesn't it? What happens after such a rapid and frankly violent change?
A crucial question. The sources show us former Supreme Court Chief Justice Sushila Karki.
Right, the first woman to hold that position.
Notably, yes. She's been appointed as interim prime minister.
Okay.
Her mandate is to hold elections by March 2026. Her strong anti-corruption stance and, interestingly, her Indian academic background are highlighted.
As qualifications for stability, perhaps.
Perhaps seen that way. However, the sources also critically point out the constitutional questions around dissolving parliament based solely on public protests, calling it constitutionally questionable.
Oh.
It's a very, very tenuous balance right now.
And what's truly striking, as our sources reveal, is that Nepal's situation isn't an isolated incident, is it?
No, not at all.
It seems to be part of a larger, pretty unsettling trend across the region, a real domino effect throughout South Asia.
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Nepal's crisis echoes similar convulsions we've seen recently.
Like where?
Well, Sri Lanka, for example, experienced that crippling economic collapse and mass protests that forced President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to flee back in 2022.
I remember that well.
And just last year, Bangladesh saw student-led protests force Sheikh Hasina's resignation in August 2024. Then you have Pakistan's almost perpetual instability, caught between military and civilian rule.
A constant cycle there.
It seems so. And Afghanistan's plunge into isolation after the Taliban's return, and Myanmar's ongoing civil war and humanitarian crisis, tragically displacing over 2 million people.
2 million. That's a stark pattern across the board. So What stands out to you as the common thread here? What's driving this widespread regional volatility?
Well, a very clear common thread across these situations seems to be deep discontent with entrenched elites.
Okay.
This isn't just surface-level politics. It's fueled by systemic issues like corruption, widespread economic mismanagement, authoritarian tendencies, and crucially, a tech-savvy youth population that is simply unwilling to accept the status quo anymore.
Right, the Gen Z factor again.
Exactly. The sources refer to the new politics of instability in South Asia, and one expert, Paul Stanland, observes that these aren't just isolated events.
Okay.
He says the crisis is fundamentally structural. It's about the very foundations of governance in these countries.
So we're seeing more than just isolated incidents. It's a structural shift across South Asia.
That seems to be the argument.
Given this widespread volatility, what does it truly mean for a regional power like India? Do the sources offer any insights into how effective India's neighborhood-first policy has been in practice? I mean, given these deep internal problems in neighboring countries, it sounds like external aid can only go so far.
That's a really perceptive question. India is indeed described as a democratic anchor in this turbulent landscape. Its economy has shown remarkable resilience, and its neighborhood-first policy genuinely aims to provide humanitarian assistance and diplomatic engagement. However, the sources make it clear that the problems are fundamentally internal to these countries.
Right.
This poses significant challenges for India to safeguard its own interests, especially with Nepal's open border and China's growing footprint in the region.
A tricky situation.
Without appearing heavy-handed or opportunistic. It's a really delicate tightrope act for Indian diplomacy.
So we've explored how this new wave of instability is reshaping South Asia from within. But these regional tremors, they don't happen in isolation, do they?
No, definitely not.
Our sources also pull back to a broader canvas, revealing significant global geopolitical shifts, particularly in the complex relationships between the US, Europe, and India. What are the key dynamics at play here?
Well, what's fascinating here is the potential for what the sources call a Trumpian jolt to India-US relations.
No, jolt. How so?
Well, the sources raise questions about the U.S. potentially prioritizing relations with China again. And the future of the Quad, that's the security dialogue involving the U.S., Australia, Japan, and India.
Right.
And even the possibility of aggressive economic leverage, like tariffs on India over its Russian oil purchases. Former Foreign Secretary Shams Saran, he's quoted as believing this is certainly the most challenging time for Indian diplomacy. Highlights immense uncertainty for a key global player.
And while that plays out, our sources reveal a significant push for rearmament in Europe.
Yes, a major shift there.
European economies are pledging to increase defense expenditure quite dramatically. Germany, for instance, reportedly doubling its military spending.
After what's described as a humiliating 2025 Munich Security Conference.
Right. And looking at the bigger picture, global military expenditure surged by 6.8% in 2023.
An astonishing figure, hitting $2.4 trillion.
To put that in perspective, that's more than the entire economic output of many nations. A massive commitment of resources, highlighting a clear global shift towards rearmament.
It really is. And this naturally leads to an important question. What's the economic impact of such a massive increase in defense spending?
Good question. Does it boost economies or drain them?
Well, there are different perspectives. The Kiel Institute for the World Economy argues that a defense spending increase, say from 2% to 3.5% of GDP, could actually boost Europe-wide GDP by 0.9 to 1.5%. They cite potential productivity gains from R&D spillovers. Goldman Sachs estimates a multiplier of about 0.5 over 2 years for domestic defense spending. So potentially a significant economic effect.
That sounds like a potential silver lining to some, perhaps. But our sources also provide a powerful counterpoint from the United Nations.
Indeed. They view this trend very differently.
Yeah.
The UN's report, tellingly titled The Security We Need, highlights a global military expenditure surge to an all-time high of $2.7 trillion in 2024.
Wow, even higher.
And this contrasts sharply with a $4 trillion annual financing gap for the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, those global goals for peace and prosperity.
So a huge opportunity cost.
Exactly. The UN argues that heightened military spending exacerbates tensions, fuels arms races, and crucially, crowds out resources desperately needed for social and ecological balances.
Right.
They present it as a stark choice between a march to war or a path to peace and common prosperity.
So we're seeing global powers grappling with increased defense spending, and the UN calling for a serious reprioritization.
A fundamental conflict in priorities.
But even beyond military budgets, our sources reveal a broader economic malaise affecting some of the world's most developed nations. What's happening in economies like the UK and France, for instance?
Yeah, we're seeing a significant malaise in several G7 economies. Countries like the UK and France are grappling with what the sources call high-cost, low-growth economies.
Okay.
They're facing growing national debt, persistent fiscal deficits, and increasing political fragmentation. GDP growth for 5 of these G7 nations is forecast at sub 1%.
Sub 1%. That's stagnation.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
For instance, France recently got its 5th prime minister in just 2 years, reflecting that political instability.
Yeah.
And the UK saw 0 economic growth in July. It's a picture of economic stagnation compounded by political churn.
Let's shift our focus now, maybe bring it down to the ground level, to the immediate environments we live in, particularly our cities.
Okay.
Our sources highlight significant urban challenges, especially in India, which faces just immense pressure from rapid urbanization.
Yeah, the scale is huge. According to the Sustainable Development Report, SDR 2025, India ranks 99th out of 167 countries.
Is that good or bad?
Well, it's an improvement, but it still faces major challenges in achieving 7 of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay.
And SDG 11, that's the one aiming for inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable cities, features very prominently.
Right.
Alarmingly, India's scores have either stagnated or actually decreased in key indicators like the urban slum population, PM 2.5 concentration.
Air quality.
Exactly. And the urban population's access to improved piped water. This tells us the foundational services are really struggling.
And the sources paint a truly stark picture, especially for those living in slums.
Absolutely.
They generally endure the worst living conditions, inadequate basic services, and insecure tenure, meaning they can be displaced at any moment.
Yeah, no security.
For example, we learned that slums in Mumbai receive only 45 liters per capita per day of water.
Just 45-pound PCD.
Which is just a third of the government norm of 135-pound ECD.
Right.
This severe inadequacy forces residents to depend on water tankers that are, get this, almost 30 times costlier than the metered water supply.
30 times. It's an unacceptable burden, frankly.
It really is.
And these already dire challenges are gravely compounded by climate vulnerability.
How so?
The urban poor are disproportionately exposed to high levels of pollution and extreme weather events. Most big cities face heavy flooding regularly, and landslides are common in hill towns. This makes it incredibly difficult for the urban core to cope with income loss, illnesses in the wake of such disasters.
Just one thing after another.
Exactly. The sources directly attribute this to unplanned urbanization, coupled with the commodification of land and housing, which has clearly generated deep social and spatial inequalities.
So given this whole list of challenges, from water scarcity to climate vulnerability and deep inequality, what's truly holding back progress on these urban issues? Is it just a lack of funding or something deeper?
Well, the sources point to significant governance issues.
Right.
Urban development in India is a state subject, meaning local governments should have a primary role. But state government agencies often retain strong operational control over services, services that aren't fully devolved to cities. The result is that cities are bereft of revenue generation power.
They can't raise their own money easily.
Exactly. And they lack the incentives to fund basic services adequately. An RBI report from 2024 is quite telling.
The Reserve Bank of India.
Yes. It found over 50% of municipal corporations in India failed to cover even half of their revenue expenses from their own sources between 2020-21 and 2022-23.
Wow.
They simply don't have the financial autonomy.
That's a staggering statistic, and it seems even central flagship programs aren't fully addressing the issue.
That's what the sources suggest.
Initiatives like the JNNARM and the Smart City Mission, SCM, they've historically prioritized larger cities and their commercially viable zones.
That's the critique. Under the SCM, for example, projects related to water, sanitation, and health account for a meager 18% of completed projects.
Only 18%.
Yeah. There's also the insidious problem of what's called elite capture of urban governance, where, say, online surveys for urban problems might not truly reflect the concerns of the urban poor.
Because they might not have access or the means to participate. Are there any examples in the sources where these programs, despite their flaws, have shown any positive impact? Or is the picture entirely bleak?
That's a critical question for balance. And, well, while the focus of the sources leans heavily on the systemic shortcomings,
Right.
the implicit message is that some infrastructure improvements have occurred in those prioritized zones.
Okay, so not entirely bleak.
Not entirely. However, the overarching critique remains that these haven't translated into equitable service delivery for the most vulnerable.
Got it.
So the picture isn't entirely bleak in terms of, say, some infrastructure development, but it highlights a profound inequity in who benefits.
Right.
This is why the sources then pose the fundamental question. How do we genuinely move towards urban equality, not just pockets of improvement?
So, given these systemic issues, how do the sources suggest we can actually achieve that urban equality rather than just isolated improvements?
The recommendations are quite clear, actually. Augmenting public investment is key.
More money.
Yes, but also empowering cities with greater autonomy to design and finance locally responsive plans.
Local control.
Exactly. And complementing private financing with robust regulatory mechanisms, specifically designed to safeguard the interests of the urban poor.
Protections.
Yes. Most importantly, it calls for a more people-centric approach. This means deeply including local knowledge, perhaps through ward-level planning.
Bottom-up planning.
Is fundamental to realizing what they describe as fairer and more equal cities. It's about listening to the people most affected.
Beyond these general urban issues, the sources highlight a specific urgent concern, and it's literally a looming one: the Himalayas.
Ah, yes.
It's a region that feels like it's increasingly in crisis.
You're right. The Himalayas are described as a living landscape under extraordinary stress.
Extraordinary stress.
We've seen recent catastrophes. Flash floods in Uttarkash's Darali village, devastating landslides in Mandi, heavy rains across Jammu and Kashmir.
Just constantly in the news.
It feels like it. The core message from the sources is unambiguous. Reckless development and fragile terrain can multiply disasters. We're pushing the limits of what this delicate ecosystem can bear.
And it seems our current planning has largely ignored the terrain, the hydrology, even the unique culture of the mountains, hasn't it?
Pretty much ignored it, yeah.
Most Himalayan towns have grown without any comprehensive planning whatsoever, resulting in these ribbon-like sprawls along highways.
Yeah, unplanned growth. And then there's the rapid concretization on waterheads, which just intensifies floods and landslides. It's a vicious cycle of unsustainable growth.
So what can be done? What are the solutions?
Precisely. The sources propose concrete solutions. This includes terrain-sensitive urban planning, meaning conducting rigorous carrying capacity assessments to understand what the land can actually sustain. We need to build for resilience, implementing specific earthquake-resistant structures, referencing Indian standards like IS 1893 and IS 2920, and enforcing strict height limits.
Building smarter.
Exactly. It calls for using local, sustainable materials like timber and stone, adopting alternatives to conventional roads like ropeways and electric buses to reduce slope cutting.
Interesting alternatives.
And implementing decentralized water management systems, think rainwater harvesting, graywater recycling, and waste management through composting.
Makes sense.
And crucially, construction must be prohibited entirely in known hazard-prone areas.
A clear red line.
Should be.
And as an often overlooked yet deeply critical dimension of these environmental disasters,
Yes.
our sources highlight the devastating impact of floods on women's healthcare. It's not just about homes and livelihoods, but fundamental services.
Yes, it's a heartbreaking reality. Floods don't just damage homes. They disrupt sanitation, they make health facilities inaccessible for women needing prenatal and postnatal care.
Critical care.
Absolutely. And they cause widespread water contamination. The recent floods across Bihar, for instance, severely disrupted maternal health services.
How bad was it?
Alarmingly poor antenatal care in many affected villages, according to the sources. It's a crisis layered on top of a crisis.
So what do the sources advocate for here?
Well, building flood-resistant infrastructure, which sounds obvious but is often neglected.
Right.
Training health workers specifically for flood-affected areas. They also suggest promoting teleconsultation where physical access is impossible.
Using technology.
Yes. But crucially, they emphasize that women should be allowed to express their own needs when designing programs for natural calamities.
Giving them a voice.
Exactly. As many plans currently don't factor in these gender-specific needs, it's about empowering those most affected to be part of the solution.
That makes perfect sense.
And this focus on specific needs and individual choices, it naturally leads to a powerful personal reflection shared in our sources, one that asks us all to consider our own role in environmental impact. The author, after visiting a pristine region in France, realized the damage each long-distance flight causes to the environment.
A moment of clarity.
It forced a reevaluation of personal travel choices and even prompted the idea of earning the right to visit such places.
Earning the right. Interesting.
Yeah. It's a reminder that these huge global issues often come down to individual decisions and reflections.
That's a profound thought to carry with us. Okay, finally, let's explore how technological shifts are reshaping our lives, both practically and culturally.
Right.
Let's start with something many of us can't imagine living without. The smartphone.
Ah, yes, the ubiquitous rectangle. Our sources suggest that smartphones, as we know them, might have actually peaked.
Peaked, really?
Yeah. The article playfully compares incremental iPhone upgrades to attempts to make faster horses before Henry Ford invented the car.
Good analogy.
It even notes that Apple stock tumbled after the theoretical iPhone 17 launch. The implication is we've hit a technological plateau for the current form factor.
It's a compelling argument, isn't it? The author argues that any subsequent resolution upgrade, speed upgrade, or camera clarity bump won't be distinguishable to the naked eye.
You can only push a screen so far.
Right. Instead, they envision a future where phones shrink and eventually disappear. Replaced by displays before your eyes and commands transmitted via thought, rather than being this rectangular rock we constantly need to charge.
Wow. Mind control.
A future without the low battery anxiety. Imagine that.
Slight chuckle, indeed. This vision of disappearing tech leads us to wonder, how is technology right now, particularly social media, influencing something as fundamental as our public discourse?
That's a crucial pivot, isn't it? We've seen social media as a catalyst for political change. Coordinating those Gen Z protests in Nepal, for instance, which aired legitimate grievances.
A powerful tool, for sure.
But our sources also highlight its role in a continued corrosion of our national political discourse.
The dark side.
They lament that platforms have become cesspools of hate speech, where anonymity and the virality of outrage unfortunately encourage politicians to mimic that tone in real life to stay relevant. What examples do the sources provide for this really troubling trend?
Well, the sources are quite explicit. This demeaning public discourse is described as a ruse to avoid issue-based politics.
A distraction tactic.
Basically, where outrage sells and the substance of political messages is often ignored in favor of crass, inflammatory style.
Yeah.
The piece provides examples of leaders from various Indian parties, not just one party, using openly abusive and incendiary language.
And the leadership response.
The concerning silence from their respective leadership is often seen as a tacit endorsement. It's like a race to the bottom that diminishes serious debate.
Technology also intertwines deeply with culture, of course, and our sources dive into the state of cinema, offering a fascinating comparison between different film industries.
The observation is that Hindi cinema, Bollywood, has undergone a significant shift, moving from stories to spectacle.
Spectacle over substance.
Often, yeah. Sometimes coming with state-approved scripts that tend to patrol history and maybe build walls between communities rather than exploring the complexities of human lives. South Indian cinema, in contrast, is noted in these sources for its authenticity and strong scripts, often becoming genuine cultural phenomena with widespread appeal. It's a telling divergence in artistic direction.
And in a truly striking twist that connects back to our earlier geopolitical discussions, the sources reveal a Khasi language film, Ha Linka Ben. It won top awards at the prestigious Moscow International Film Festival.
That's great.
But it was subsequently dropped by festivals in Europe.
Dropped? Why?
Due to the geopolitical situation between Russia and Ukraine.
Wow, so politics impacting art directly.
Exactly. This underscores a very different and perhaps more subtle kind of censorship in what the sources call the West's so-called democracies. It implies that mere participation in an event, even a cultural one, can be penalized.
That's worrying.
It highlights how broader geopolitical tensions can dramatically impact cultural exchange, potentially denying wider audiences access to what could be truly brilliant and diverse films. It's a reminder of how interconnected everything truly is.
Absolutely.
Wow, we've really covered a lot of ground today. I mean, from the turbulent political landscapes of South Asia and the complex power plays of global diplomacy,
Right,
to the urgent environmental and social challenges facing our cities, and that double-edged sword of technological advancement shaping our discourse and even our art.
What we've seen, I think, is a world grappling with immense uncertainty and rapid change.
Definitely.
Whether it's the frustration of Gen Z leading protests, the economic strain on G7 nations, the invisible costs of reckless urban development, the challenges to maternal health, or the evolving nature of our communication and culture. These forces are deeply interconnected. They're shaping our present and defining our future.
It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? How will we, as a global society, balance these immediate demands of political stability and economic growth with the long-term imperative of sustainable development and a more empathetic public discourse?
It's the central challenge.
Are we making conscious choices, like that author reflecting on air travel, about the kind of world we want to build? Will human folly continue to overshadow our capacity for collective wisdom?
Oh.
Or will wise leaders rise to the occasion and choose a path of peace and common prosperity?
As one source provocatively suggests, our greatest hope is perhaps that wise leaders will rise above egos to look towards a peaceful future for next generations. The security we need, they argue, is to survive as a species, not to fight to our mutual annihilation.
Powerful thought to consider and a challenging question for us all. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.
We hope it's given you plenty to mull over and perhaps inspired you to dig a little deeper on these crucial topics yourself.